everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today, we're going to be looking at how to really make the most of your 20s.
Yeah.
And we've got this super interesting source called How to Ruin Your 20s, the 7 biggest mistakes you must avoid.
Right.
As our our roadmap, our guide.
Yeah, yeah.
And, before we get into it, I just want to say it's not about freaking out if you've made some of these mistakes. It's all about,
Exactly.
setting ourselves up for success.
I think what I find so interesting about this source is that it flips the typical avoid mistakes thing on its head.
Right.
Because it's really not about being afraid to mess up, but it's about recognizing your 20s as a time to, experiment and grow.
Yeah.
And all those so-called mistakes are really just the most valuable learning experiences.
It's so true. It totally reminds me of that time I tried to launch a side hustle selling handmade jewelry.
Oh, wow.
I poured hours into it, and honestly, the whole thing was a total flop.
Oh.
But looking back, I learned so much about marketing and budgeting and resilience.
Right.
Things I wouldn't have learned otherwise.
But that's a perfect example, I think, of what this source is talking about.
Yeah.
And it actually goes really deep into those kinds of failures that are so common in your 20s, career stumbles,
right?
Relationship struggles, that feeling of just not having it all figured out.
Totally.
And the key, it keeps emphasizing, is to reframe those experiences as data points, not defining moments.
So true. Yeah. Instead of letting that failed side hustle, crush my entrepreneurial spirit,
yeah,
I learned, I got valuable lessons about what works and what doesn't.
Exactly.
And it's okay, so maybe jewelry wasn't my thing, but the skills that I learned can be applied to other projects.
For sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the source even highlights how so many successful people actually embrace failure.
Yeah.
As a stepping stone.
Right.
Take J.K. Rowling, for instance. Her first Harry Potter book was rejected by 12 publishers before it finally found a home.
No way.
Yeah. Imagine if she'd given up after the first couple rejections,
Right. That's so inspiring.
Yeah.
It really underscores that whole message about not letting the fear of failure paralyze us.
Yeah.
But the source doesn't just talk about fear.
Right.
It also dives deep into how we use our time in our 20s.
Yeah.
Specifically warning against wasting time on things that just don't matter.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the source isn't just talking about scrolling mindlessly on social media, although that's definitely part of it.
Yeah.
But it's also about recognizing those patterns in our lives that just drain our energy and prevent us from actually pursuing our goals.
Yeah.
So think about it. What are some of the things that you find yourself doing that, deep down aren't really serving you?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's definitely getting caught up in comparing myself to others.
Yeah.
Especially on social media.
Yeah.
It's such a huge time suck.
It is.
And it just leaves me feeling so inadequate and anxious.
That's so relatable. And the source actually gets into the whole psychology behind that.
Oh, cool.
And how our 20s are such a crucial time for identity formation.
Right.
So when we're constantly bombarded with these curated versions of other people's lives,
yeah,
it's so easy to lose sight of our own values and what we really want.
It's we're trying to build our own unique house.
Yeah.
But we keep looking at our neighbor's blueprint.
Right.
And we're questioning all our design choices.
That's such a good analogy.
Yeah.
And the source actually suggests this really simple but powerful solution.
Okay.
To spend time alone.
Alone.
Not in a lonely way, but in a way that lets you reconnect with your own inner voice.
Yeah.
Clarify what really matters to you and just silence all that external noise that can be so distracting.
It's so funny you say that, because I've actually been trying to incorporate more journaling into my routine.
Oh, wow.
And it's become this amazing space for me to process my thoughts and, explore my goals and just reconnect with what truly matters to me.
That's awesome.
Not what I think should matter based on what I see on social media.
Exactly. And the source emphasizes how even a few minutes of daily reflection can really make a huge difference.
Yeah.
It's about creating that space to step back from the craziness of life.
Yeah.
And just tune into your own inner compass.
Love it.
But it's not just about introspection.
Right.
The source also highlights the importance of taking action.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to our finances.
Money matters.
Yeah, money matters for sure.
I'll be honest, this is one area I've definitely struggled with
Oh,
in
yeah.
the past. Like, the whole idea of investing and budgeting just used to feel so overwhelming and, like, intimidating.
I think that's a really common feeling, especially in your 20s when you might be juggling student loans, entry-level salaries,
Right.
and maybe even that pressure to keep up with the Joneses.
Totally.
But I think what the source does really well is like demystify financial concepts.
Right.
And break them down into bite-sized pieces that we can actually digest.
And it doesn't preach at you.
I
right?
see. No.
Not like lecturing us about the evils of avocado toast.
Exactly.
But rather like empowering us to make informed decisions that align with our long-term goals.
Absolutely. And the source reminds us that our 20s are like the perfect time to harness the power of compound interest.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
Even small, consistent investments
Yeah.
can grow exponentially over time.
Right.
And that can set us up for like financial stability and freedom down the road.
So it's not about like stressing out,
Right,
about
yeah.
becoming a Wall Street wizard overnight,
Yeah.
but it's about taking those first steps, like, setting up a budget or like learning about different investment options.
Absolutely. And there are so many resources available today that make it so much easier.
Oh, yeah.
And actually kind of fun, too.
Yeah.
Apps, podcasts, websites, there's something out there for everyone.
Speaking of resources,
Yeah.
I recently discovered this amazing app
Yeah.
that helps me like track my spending and set financial goals.
Cool.
It's been a game changer.
See, that's taking action.
Yeah.
And that proactive approach is something that the source just like really emphasizes throughout. It's not about waiting for that perfect moment
Right.
or having it all figured out.
Right.
It's about taking those small steps consistently and building momentum over time.
And this like ties back to what we were talking about earlier about recognizing those like time-wasting patterns. Right?
Yes.
So by being more aware of like how we spend our time and our energy,
Yeah,
we can free up space to focus on the things that truly matter.
exactly.
Like building healthy habits.
Right.
And pursuing, those things we're passionate about.
That's a brilliant connection. And that actually brings us to another crucial point the source makes.
Okay.
It's about the importance of prioritizing our health, both physically and mentally.
I think this is where a lot of people in their 20s might roll their eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, we feel invincible.
Yeah.
Oh, we can run on caffeine and late nights forever.
Yeah.
But the source makes a really good point about why taking care of our health now is like an investment in our future selves.
It's true. And it actually goes beyond just, the obvious benefits of physical health.
Okay.
The source digs into the science behind brain development.
Oh.
And highlights how our 20s are a critical period for shaping our cognitive abilities
Right.
and our emotional regulation, even our stress response.
So those late night pizza binges
Mm-hmm.
and all-nighters, they might not just be affecting our waistlines.
Yeah.
They could be impacting our brain health for years to come.
Exactly. And while the source does emphasize things like exercise and sleep,
Yeah.
it also takes a more holistic approach to health, recognizing that our mental and emotional well-being are just as important.
So true.
And that's why there's actually a whole section
Yeah.
dedicated to the impact of relationships.
Right.
Because toxic relationships can be so detrimental
Yeah.
to our overall health and well-being, especially in our 20s.
Totally.
And it's not just about romantic relationships, it's about all the relationships in our lives. Friendships, family dynamics, even work relationships.
It's true.
The source really stresses the importance of surrounding ourselves with people who support our growth
Yeah.
and challenge us in positive ways.
Absolutely. And conversely, it also warns against staying in relationships that drain our energy,
Right.
undermine our confidence,
Totally.
and keep us stuck in these like unhealthy patterns.
This is where the source goes deep into the psychology of boundary and highlights how our 20s are such a crucial time for defining what we will and will not accept from others.
It's like we're learning to draw those lines in the sand.
Yeah,
And saying like, hey, this is what I deserve.
exactly.
I'm not going to settle for anything less.
And while it can be so tough to set boundaries, especially with people we care about,
Yeah.
the source makes the point that it's essential for our self-respect and our emotional well-being.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
So true.
If we're constantly giving our energy to people who drain us, then we have nothing left for ourselves
Right.
or for the relationships that truly matter.
That's such a powerful image.
Yeah.
And it really underscores the source's message about being mindful
Yeah.
of who we allow into our lives and
Yeah.
how we choose to engage in those relationships.
This has been so insightful already.
It has.
And I feel like we've only just like scratched the surface of this source.
There's so much more.
But before we dive into the next section, I think it would be great to just take a moment to like reflect on what we've learned so far.
Absolutely.
What are some of the key takeaways that have really resonated with you?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear that too.
Yeah.
I think for me, the idea of like reframing failure as data has been really powerful.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in that fear of making mistakes,
Right.
especially, when you're in your 20s and there's so much pressure to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
But this source really reminds us that those stumbles and setbacks are actually like invaluable learning experiences.
It's true. It's like instead of beating ourselves up over every little misstep we make,
Right.
we can ask ourselves like, okay, well, what did I learn from this?
Exactly.
How can I use this experience to make better decisions in the future?
Exactly. And I think that ties in really nicely with another key takeaway,
Okay.
which is the importance of defining our own values and priorities.
Yes.
In this world, it's just so saturated with all this external noise.
Right.
Especially from social media.
Yeah.
It's so easy to lose sight of what really matters to us as individuals.
It's so true. It's like we're constantly bombarded with these messages about what we should be doing, how we should be living, even who we should be dating. It's
a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelming.
And the source reminds us that our 20s are such a crucial time for like carving out our own path and figuring out, what truly resonates with us on a deeper level,
right?
Regardless of what others might think or expect.
Totally. That reminds me of the section on time management.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about like avoiding that mindless scrolling, although that's definitely important.
Of course.
But it's about like really being intentional with how we spend our precious time and energy.
The source makes such a great point about how, in our 20s, we have this incredible opportunity to really invest our time in things that align with our values.
Totally.
Whether that's, building those meaningful relationships or pursuing a passion project or simply just like prioritizing our well-being.
And it also like cautions against falling into that trap of busyness.
Oh, the busyness trap, yes.
Where we're constantly like doing, but not necessarily moving towards anything meaningful.
That's such a good point. It's like we wear our busyness as a badge of honor.
Right.
It's so often it's just a distraction from the things that really matter.
So true. So instead of just like filling our calendars with all these endless to-dos, the source encourages us to step back and ask ourselves, is this activity like truly aligned with my goals?
Right.
Is this really how I want to be spending my time and energy?
And if the answer is no, then it might be time to like reevaluate our commitments and create space for the things that really bring us joy and fulfillment.
So important. And, this brings us to another like key takeaway from the source, which is the importance of prioritizing our health.
Yes.
Both physically and mentally.
That's so crucial.
I think this is where a lot of people in their 20s kind of fall short.
Right.
We just feel invincible.
Invincible, yeah.
Like we can push ourselves to the limit with no consequences.
Totally.
But the source really underscores how the choices we make now can have like a huge impact on our long-term health.
Long-term, for sure.
And it's not just about avoiding those late-night pizza binges.
Although that's definitely a part of it.
It's a part of it.
Yeah.
But the source really digs into the science behind brain development.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Highlighting how our 20s are like this critical period for shaping our cognitive abilities and our emotional regulation.
So important.
Even our stress response.
Wow.
So those all-nighters and those unhealthy habits, they might not just be affecting our energy levels today.
Right.
They could be impacting our brain health for years to come.
Yeah. And the source goes beyond that typical eat your veggies and exercise advice.
Yeah.
It encourages us to take a more holistic approach to health. Oh, I like that.
Really recognizing the interconnectedness of like our physical, mental, and emotional well-being.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
Which is why the source really emphasizes the importance of cultivating healthy relationships, right?
Yes.
Because toxic relationships can be so detrimental to our overall health.
They really can.
And well-being.
And it's not just about romantic relationships. It's about all the connections in our lives.
Yes.
Like you said, friendships, family dynamics, even work relationships.
It's true.
The source makes such a strong case for surrounding ourselves with people who support our growth, who inspire us, who challenge us in positive ways.
And on the flip side, Like, it cautions us against staying in relationships that drain our energy.
Right, that drain us.
Undermine our confidence and keep us stuck in those unhealthy patterns.
Absolutely. And this is where the source, dives deep into the psychology of boundaries.
Boundaries, yeah. And it really highlights how our 20s are this crucial time for defining what we will and will not accept from others.
So important.
It's about learning to say no to things that don't align with our values and prioritizing our own well-being.
That reminds me of this quote I heard recently.
Oh, yeah.
It said, "Self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you."
Oh, I love that.
And it's so easy to get caught up in pleasing others or meeting external expectations that we totally neglect our own needs.
It's so true. And the source emphasizes how setting boundaries isn't selfish.
Right.
It's actually an act of self-respect and self-preservation.
It allows us to really show up more fully and authentically in the relationships that truly matter.
I love that it's like that analogy of, putting on your own oxygen mask first before assisting others on an airplane.
Yeah.
You can't effectively help anyone else if you're gasping for air yourself.
Such a good analogy.
And this brings us to the final key takeaway from the source.
Okay.
Which is the importance of cultivating discipline over relying solely on motivation.
Ooh. Discipline.
It's a message that really resonates throughout the entire book.
And I think that's where a lot of us struggle.
Oh, for sure.
Right? We wait for that, burst of inspiration or motivation to strike.
Yeah, waiting for it.
And then it fades and we're left feeling discouraged and unmotivated.
And that's because motivation is fleeting, it comes and goes.
Right.
But discipline is about showing up consistently.
Yeah.
Even when we don't feel like it.
Oh, I hate that.
It's about building those small daily habits that compound over time and lead to significant results.
Do you have any, tips for that?
Yeah, the source actually provides some really practical tips.
Okay, great.
Like creating a structured routine,
Yeah.
setting realistic goals,
Right.
and even finding ways to, make the process enjoyable.
I like that.
Because it doesn't have to be a drag. It also emphasizes, self-compassion.
Oh, it's good.
Recognizing that slip-ups are going to happen, they're inevitable.
Right.
It's not about being perfect, it's about progress.
Yeah.
Showing up for ourselves day after day, even when it's hard.
It's like that saying, the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time.
Exactly.
We don't need to overhaul our entire lives overnight. It's about those small, consistent actions that lead to lasting change.
I love that. And that's what makes the source so empowering.
Yeah.
It doesn't offer those quick fixes or magic solutions.
Right.
But it provides a framework
Yeah.
for approaching our 20s with intention, with awareness, and a commitment to personal growth.
I think we're being given this set of tools and this map to navigate this exciting and sometimes overwhelming decade.
It is a lot.
Yeah. And the best part is we get to choose our own adventure.
It's our journey.
We get to define what success means to us,
Right.
what we want to prioritize, and how we want to spend our time and energy.
Hey.
This has been such a rich and insightful conversation.
It has.
I feel like we've just uncovered so many gems from this source already.
So many.
But before we, dive into the final section,
Yeah.
I think it'd be valuable to hear from our listeners.
I agree.
What are some of the key takeaways that have resonated with you so far?
Yeah, what are you still grappling with?
We'd love to hear your thoughts and insights.
Yeah, share them with us.
You can share them with us on social media.
Yeah.
Or leave a comment on the episode page.
Exactly. We're all in this together.
We are. It's been so great hearing from our listeners and seeing what's really resonating with them as we kind of unpack this source.
I know, me too.
There's a real sense of a shared journey here.
Absolutely.
Which I love.
It is. And that shared experience is so important, I think, especially in your 20s.
Yeah.
When it can often feel like you're navigating this uncharted territory all alone.
It's true, which is why I'm so excited to dive into this final section of the source.
Oh.
It really focuses on the importance of taking action.
Right.
Moving beyond the planning and reflecting stage and actually putting these insights into practice.
Yeah, and the source doesn't shy away from the fact that this can be the hardest part.
Oh, totally.
It's one thing to intellectually understand a concept like discipline or boundary setting.
Right.
But it's another thing entirely to actually implement those ideas in our daily lives.
It's so true. We can read all the self-help books in the world.
Yeah.
But if we don't actually take action, nothing changes.
Absolutely. And that's where the source offers some really practical advice.
Okay, great.
It encourages us to start small.
Okay.
Focus on building those micro habits
Yeah.
that over time can create a ripple effect in our lives.
I like that. And it also emphasizes like the importance of celebrating those small wins.
Yes.
Right? Like acknowledging our progress.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like always visible to the outside world.
That is so crucial.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in like striving for perfection.
Right.
That overnight transformation.
Right.
That we forget to actually appreciate those small steps that we're taking each and every day.
It's true. We're so focused on the destination that we forget to enjoy the journey.
Exactly.
And speaking of journeys,
yeah,
the source ends with this really powerful message about like embracing the unknown.
Oh, I love that.
Recognizing that our 20s are a time for exploration and experimentation.
For sure.
The author reminds us that it's okay to not have all the answers.
Okay.
It's okay to change our minds.
Yeah.
Try things and fail.
Yeah.
And just like course correct along the way.
It's like we're being given permission to let go of that pressure.
Yeah.
Have it all figured out.
Right.
And just embrace the messiness and uncertainty that comes with this stage of life.
Yeah. And trust that those experiences, even the tough ones, are shaping us into the people we're meant to become.
I love that.
It's like that quote, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn.
Yes.
And in your 20s, there's a lot of learning happening.
A lot.
But the source emphasizes that it's not just about passively learning.
Right.
It's about actively creating the life we want.
Taking control.
Yeah. And the author leaves us with this really thought-provoking question.
Okay, let's hear it.
What if, instead of trying to avoid ruining your 20s, you focused on building the most incredible decade of your life?
That is such a good question.
Right. It's like a total shift in perspective.
It is.
From fear and avoidance to possibility and creation.
I love that. And that's what I love about this source.
Yeah.
It's not about, prescribing a one-size-fits-all formula for success.
Right.
But it's about empowering us to define what success means to us as individuals.
Yes.
And to really take ownership of our own journeys.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a challenge.
Okay, I'm ready.
What's one small step you can take today, inspired by what we've talked about, to start building the most incredible decade of your life?
Love that maybe it's finally starting that side project you've been dreaming of.
Yeah.
Or setting a boundary in a relationship that's been draining you.
Right.
Or just simply committing to a daily practice that really nourishes your well-being.
Whatever it is, just remember, you don't have to do it alone.
That's right.
Share your step with us on social media.
Yeah.
Connect with others who are on a similar journey.
Yeah.
And let's support each other as we navigate this incredible and transformative decade.
It's going to be great.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep creating the life you love.